Some weapons are built to win wars. Others are built to prevent them from ever starting. Deep beneath the surface of the ocean, hidden in silence, invisible to radar, unreachable by enemy defenses, there exists a machine so powerful that its mere presence can shape the decisions of entire nations. A submarine, carrying enough nuclear firepower to destroy a continent, and designed so that no enemy could ever be certain where it was. During the Cold War, when the balance between the United States and the Soviet Union rested on the edge of catastrophe, this kind of weapon became more than just a tool of war. It became a guarantee, a silent promise that if the unthinkable happened, there would be no escape from the consequences. This is the story of the Ohio-class submarine, the most powerful and survivable nuclear deterrent ever deployed beneath the sea. At the height of the Cold War, the world was divided into two armed camps. On one side, the United States and its allies. On the other, the Soviet Union and its sphere of influence. Both possessed nuclear arsenals capable of unimaginable destruction. But the true danger wasn't just in the weapons themselves. It was in the possibility of a first strike. If one side believed it could eliminate the other's nuclear forces in a surprise attack, it could tip the balance of power overnight. That fear shaped everything. Military strategy, technological development, global diplomacy, all centered around a single question. Could your enemy strike first and leave you unable to respond? For the United States, the answer had to be no. Because deterrence, the idea that no enemy would attack if they knew retaliation was certain, depended on one critical factor: survivability. American nuclear forces had to be able to endure any attack and still respond with overwhelming force. Land-based missiles could be targeted. Strategic bombers could be intercepted. But there was one domain that offered something different: the ocean. Vast, unpredictable, nearly impossible to fully monitor. And somewhere within it, a submarine could disappear completely. This was the foundation of a new level of strategic thinking. Instead of relying only on visible strength, the United States would invest in something far more elusive, a second strike capability that could not be neutralized. Because if an enemy could never be sure they had destroyed all of America's nuclear forces, they would never risk launching the first attack. That idea would evolve into one of the most important components of U.S. military power during the Cold War: the ballistic missile submarine. Early versions already existed, nuclear-powered submarines capable of launching missiles from beneath the surface. But as Soviet capabilities advanced, it became clear that something more capable, more advanced, and more survivable was needed. Something designed from the ground up to remain hidden for extended periods. Something that could carry a larger, more powerful payload. Something that could operate quietly enough to vanish into the depths of the ocean. The answer would come in the form of a new class of submarine. Larger, quieter, and more capable than anything that had come before. But building such a vessel required overcoming enormous challenges. It wasn't just about firepower. It was about endurance, stealth, precision, and the ability to operate for months without detection. Inside U.S. naval design facilities, engineers began pushing the limits of what was possible beneath the sea. Nuclear propulsion systems were refined to allow longer deployments. Hull designs were optimized for quiet operation. Advanced sonar systems were developed to detect threats without revealing position. Every detail mattered, because in this mission, invisibility was survival, and survival was deterrence. At the same time, missile technology was evolving. The United States needed a system that could deliver nuclear warheads across continents with precision, launched not from fixed silos, but from a moving, hidden platform deep underwater. That combination, stealth and reach, would change everything. Because now, retaliation wouldn't depend on surviving an attack above ground. It could come from anywhere, at any time, from a place no one could predict. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where strategy, technology, and global stakes collide beneath the surface, consider subscribing, because what emerged from this effort will become one of the most powerful deterrents ever created. The submarine that would carry this mission forward was unlike anything the world had seen. Massive in size, silent in operation, and armed with enough nuclear missiles to alter the course of history. It was called the Ohio class. And once it entered the ocean, it would become one of the most important and most feared elements of American power during the Cold War. The Ohio-class submarine was built for a single purpose: to remain unseen, because in the Cold War, visibility meant vulnerability, and vulnerability was unacceptable, stretching over 500 feet in length. The Ohio-class was one of the largest submarines ever constructed by the United States Navy. But size alone wasn't what made it extraordinary. It was what that size allowed. Inside its hull, hidden beneath layers of reinforced steel and advanced engineering, were 24 ballistic missile tubes, each capable of launching nuclear warheads across continents. At full capacity, a single Ohio-class submarine carried enough destructive power to devastate entire regions. But its true strength wasn't in what it carried. It was in the fact that no one knew where it was. Powered by a nuclear reactor, the submarine could remain submerged for months at a time. It didn't need to surface. It didn't need to reveal itself. It moved slowly, quietly, deliberately, disappearing into the vastness of the ocean. To detect it required extraordinary effort. And even then, there were no guarantees. Every aspect of the Ohio-class was designed to reduce noise. Machinery was isolated. Systems were engineered to operate with minimal vibration. The hull itself was optimized to glide through the water with as little acoustic signature as possible. In the silent world beneath the waves, sound was everything, and the quieter you were, the safer you became. Inside the submarine, life was defined by discipline and precision. Crew members operated in rotating shifts, maintaining constant readiness. Every system, from propulsion to navigation to weapons control, was monitored continuously, because even in silence, the mission never stopped. These submarines were part of a system known as strategic deterrence. They weren't meant to attack first. They were meant to ensure that if the United States were ever attacked, the response would be inevitable, and that certainly changed the behavior of adversaries. Because no matter how advanced Soviet tracking systems became, no matter how many resources were dedicated to finding these submarines, they could never be sure they had found them all. And that uncertainty was powerful. Each Ohio-class submarine operated on extended patrols, often lasting several months, in carefully selected areas of the world's oceans. Their patrol zones were classified, their movements unpredictable. Even within the U.S. military, knowledge of their exact locations was tightly controlled. The fewer people who knew, the safer they were. At any given moment, multiple submarines were deployed, ensuring that a second strike capability was always active, always ready. It was a system designed not for visibility, but for reliability, because deterrence only works if it is unquestionable. Inside the control room, far from sunlight, decisions were made with calm precision. Navigation charts were updated. Sonar operators listened carefully for distant signals. Ships, submarines, anything that might indicate a threat. Every sound mattered. A distant engine, a change in water pressure, the faintest indication that they were not alone. And if something was detected, the response was immediate: evasion, silence, disappearance, because survival was everything. At the same time, above the surface, the Cold War continued to evolve. The Soviet Union invested heavily in anti-submarine warfare. New sonar systems were deployed. Patrol aircraft searched vast areas of ocean. Attack submarines were sent out to hunt. It became a game of shadows. One side tried to remain invisible. The other tried to find what could not be seen. But the balance remained in favor of the United States. Because the Ohio-class wasn't just quieter. It was part of a larger, coordinated system. Intelligence, naval strategy, and technological advancement worked together to protect these submarines and ensure their mission could continue uninterrupted. And as long as they remained hidden, the deterrent remained intact. Yet, despite all of its advantages, the system depended on one critical assumption: that the submarines would never be forced to prove their purpose. Because if that moment ever came, it would mean that everything else had already failed. And somewhere in the depths of the ocean, silent and unseen, the Ohio-class continued its patrol, carrying a power that no nation could ignore and a responsibility that could never be taken lightly. The true power of the Ohio-class wasn't measured in silence alone. It was measured in what it could do if that silence was ever broken. Hidden within its hull were Trident ballistic missiles, long-range weapons capable of traveling thousands of miles, leaving the ocean and crossing continents in minutes. Each missile carried multiple warheads, each warhead capable of striking a different target, and all of it controlled from a platform that no enemy could reliably track. From the outside, the ocean appeared calm, but beneath the surface, the Ohio class was always ready. Every system maintained, every sequence rehearsed, because in the event of a nuclear conflict, there would be no time for hesitation. Orders would come quickly, and the response would have to be immediate. Inside the submarine, launch procedures were precise, controlled, and deeply ingrained. Crews trained relentlessly to execute their mission under the most extreme conditions imaginable. They didn't operate with emotion, they operated with certainty. Because the mission wasn't about destruction, it was about ensuring that destruction would never be necessary. This was the foundation of deterrence. The idea that no adversary would risk initiating a nuclear war if they knew the response would be unavoidable and overwhelming. And the Ohio class made that response undeniable. Even if land-based missiles were destroyed, even if air bases were neutralized, even if command centers were targeted, the submarines would remain silent, hidden, untouched, waiting. That reality forced strategic restraint at the highest levels. Because any attempt to eliminate the United States' nuclear capability would always be incomplete. There would always be something left, and that something was enough. At the same time, the Soviet Union understood this. Their own submarine forces expanded. Their anti-submarine capabilities improved. Their naval strategy evolved to try to locate and track American ballistic missile submarines. But the challenge was immense. The oceans were vast. The Ohio class was quiet, and even the most advanced detection systems struggled to maintain consistent contact. It became a strategic stalemate beneath the waves, one that few people ever saw, but one that shaped global stability. Every patrol conducted by an Ohio-class submarine sent a message without a single transmission, a message that said, the United States is present, the United States is prepared, and the United States cannot be disarmed. Yet behind that message was something else, responsibility. Because the crews aboard these submarines understood the weight of what they carried. They lived for months in isolation, cut off from the world, operating in a confined environment where every action mattered. There were no headlines, no recognition, no public acknowledgement, only the mission to remain undetected, to remain ready, to ensure that if the unthinkable ever happened, they would act. And that quiet dedication became one of the most important elements of Cold War stability, because deterrence didn't rely on visibility. It relied on trust. Trust that the system would work. Trust that the submarines would remain hidden. Trust that, if necessary, the response would come. And as long as that trust existed, the balance held. But the question always lingered beneath the surface. What would happen if that balance was ever tested? Because the Ohio class was designed for a moment the world hoped would never arrive, a moment when silence would end and history would change forever. In the end, the Ohio class submarine never had to prove its full power, and that was its greatest success. Because in the Cold War, the most effective weapons were not the ones that were used. They were the ones that made war unthinkable. Hidden beneath the surface, moving silently through the vastness of the ocean, the Ohio class became a constant, an invisible presence that shaped decisions at the highest levels of power. It didn't need to be seen. It didn't need to act. Its existence alone was enough. For American leadership, it provided something critical in a world of uncertainty. Confidence. Confidence that no matter how advanced an adversary became, no matter how aggressive a situation grew, the United States could never be caught defenseless, because somewhere in the depths beyond reach, beyond detection, there was always a response waiting. And that certainty changed everything. It stabilized strategy. It reduced the risk of sudden escalation. It forced restraint, even in moments of extreme tension. For the Soviet Union, the message was clear. There was no scenario where a first strike could eliminate American retaliation. No scenario where victory could be achieved without unacceptable consequences. And in that realization, the balance of the Cold War was preserved. But the legacy of the Ohio class didn't end with the Cold War. As the world changed, so did the role of these submarines. Some were converted to carry conventional cruise missiles. Others continued their mission as part of the United States nuclear deterrent. Still patrolling, still silent, still ready. Decades later, they remain among the most powerful and survivable elements of American military capability, a testament to the strategy that defined an era, because the Ohio class was never just a submarine. It was a concept, a demonstration that strength could exist without visibility, that power could operate without noise, and that sometimes the most important battles are the ones that never happen. In the Cold War, victory wasn't marked by conquest. It was marked by survival, by the ability to maintain stability in a world constantly on the edge. And in that quiet, unseen domain beneath the ocean, the United States held the line. If you found this story as compelling as we did, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because there are many more Cold War stories that reveal how close the world came and how it was held together in ways most people never saw.